gratitude to him, and in a special way to remember with gratitude him, whose vision, determination, and love for the martyrs gave us this magnificent minor basilica. What we celebrate today stands as part of his enduring legacy. He understood that Munyonyo was not simply a historical site, it was a sacred place where generations would encounter Christ through the witness of our beloved martyrs. May the Lord reward him abundantly and grant him eternal rest. My dear friends, my dear pilgrims, today I wish to reflect more especially with you on the legacy of the Uganda martyrs. Njagala okwogera ku mukululo gw'abajulizi ba Uganda. What is a legacy? Omukululo kye ki? Every life asks that unquestionable and unavoidable question, what will remain when I am gone? When vaawo, kiki ekirisigalawo? A legacy is not simply a memory. A legacy is not simply a monument. All these buildings we have here. A legacy is not a photograph. A legacy is not a name written in history or on a stone. A legacy is the influence that refuses to die. Though the martyrs are dead, their legacy has refused to die. Legacy is the stubborn, continuing power of a life long after that life has left this earth. They died many, many years ago, but here you are in the thousands celebrating their legacy. The Uganda martyrs left a tremendous legacy. They are dead, yet they still speak. They are gone, yet they still teach. Yes, they were burned, yet their fire still burns today. The church in Uganda exists today because of their great, tremendous witness. The faith of millions is born from their courage. Scripture says, by faith, Abel still speaks, even though he is dead. The Uganda martyrs are still speaking. My question to you, fellow pilgrims, are you listening? And even more importantly, are we living what they died for? The theme given to us this year provides the answer. Christ is alive in you and in me. Kristo mulamu mugwe nange. But is this really so? Kituufu ddala Kristo mulamu mugwe? Kituufu Kristo mulamu mu buli mulamazi ali wano olwaleero? Kituufu Kristo mulamu mu Kereziya wa Uganda, mu buli parish, mu buli kisomesa, mu buli maka, Kristo mulamu? The martyrs were able to confront death because Christ was alive in them. The challenge of this celebration It's not merely to admire as we read about them, as we hear their stories being told. The challenge is to ask, is Christ alive in me? Don't ask whether he's alive in so and so, in our children who are going to receive communion, who are going to receive Christ for the first time. No. It is a personal question. Is Christ alive in me? Not in my neighbor, not in my parish, not in the rector of this basilica, not in our beloved Archbishop, but is Christ alive in me? My dear pilgrim here at Munyonyo today, is Christ alive in you? The martyrs were not living corpses. They were not spiritual skeletons. They were not cultural Christians. They were alive with Christ. And because Christ was alive in them, they could face the fire without fear or trembling. I would like to look at the readings today. First reading, I want to thank the readers, young men and young women. It's reading so beautifully. We have heard the story of the 7 brothers and their mother. Mirrors of the story of the Uganda Martyrs. 7 brothers with their mother. They were arrested. They were tortured so that they could abandon their lawful journey with God to eat pork. They were ready with all forms of pressure to be tortured physically. They were able to resist the pressure. You and I go through the same pressure. Sometimes it's physical. Sometimes it's moral. Sometimes it's social. Sometimes it's professional or cultural. Simanyi kyoyitamu Oluganda. Simanyi buzito bwe weetisse. Obukuyuya ng'okankana osigale Omukatoliki. I don't know what you are going through. But like the martyrs, you are going through it. They were not afraid. They resisted. They accepted even death, saying, going back, never. I go forward, even to Namugongo. These 7 brothers and their mother, they remained steadfast. They refused to violate God's law. The martyrs of Uganda did exactly the same because Christ was alive in them. As I said, I don't know what you are going through. Simanyi kyoyitamu. Abajulizi basobola okuwangula kubanga Mukama yabalimu. Mukama abooluganda babeeremu. Mubeere balamu mu Kristo. Byonna ebibalumba byonna bye mwetisse. Mukama ajja kubeetikkirako. Mujja kubeera abawanguzi mu linnya tukubeerayo. The law of God was alive in them. God's commandments were not external regulations to them. They had become part of their very being. The same must be true of you and me. A Catholic whose faith appears only on Sunday is spiritually weak. Christ must live within us every day. Those of you who know me, I usually quote this song. Omwana agamba nti wenjagala njagala kumakya mutuntu ate n'ekiro. The Martyrs teach us that Christianity is not a part-time affair. It is an all-time affair. Kumakya mutuntu ate n'ekiro. Abajulizi banti bali bantu nga bantu balamu. They were not living dead. How many Catholics today are baptized but spiritually asleep? How many priests are present in the church but absent in conviction? The martyrs were spiritually alive. Christ was alive in them. Their tongues, these 7 boys and their mother, their tongues were cut out. Their hands were severed. But they proclaimed, it was from heaven that I received this. What a faith. What a courage. What a conviction. How I wish and pray that in our Uganda, there are Catholics who are convinced and are ready, like the martyrs, to sacrifice everything and to remain Catholic. They suffered greatly, but they remained firm. You don't have a child, you don't have a wife, you don't have a man, you don't have this. And they tell you possibly the solution is there. How many will remain firm in spite of what you are going through? Many of us look just beyond our nose. But they had a vision that after this life, there was another life. That you can sacrifice this life for another life. They believed in the resurrection. This is the heart of Christian hope. The martyrs not died because they loved death. They died because they believed life was stronger than death. Christ was alive in them. Because Christ was alive in them, death could not defeat them. And death did not have the last word for the martyrs. The second reading may be the most direct explanation of today's theme. Those who live according to the flesh cannot please God. We all know what living in the flesh means. Let me just give 5 examples. We live in the flesh when we live for pleasure instead of living for principle. A person living according to the flesh asks, what makes me feel good? Rather than what is the right thing before God. We allow desires, passions, and immediate gratification to determine our decisions. Examples abound. Immorality of whichever form, pornography, adultery, cohabitation, substance abuse. There are many. Living in the flesh is living for money instead of integrity. A person living according to the flesh measures life by possessions, by wealth. Here two examples abound: corruption, bribery, embezzlement, exploitation of workers, dishonest business practices. When we compromise in that sphere, we attend Mass, but we suspend what Mass tells us from Monday to Saturday until we come back on Sunday. And the Spirit tells us, what profit? What does it profit man to gain the whole world and lose his soul, her soul? Many of the martyrs could have saved their lives by compromising, but they chose integrity over advantage. Living in the flesh, they seek human approval instead of God's approval. Many Catholics today, we are challenged with the fear of being laughed at more than fearing offending God. Many of us, in tricky situations, we may remain silent when the truth must be spoken, but we dare not pronounce the truth as it may be pronounced. We support borderline practices so that we may fit in. We hide our Catholic identity. We follow trends contrary to the Christian teaching. The flesh asks, what will people think of me? The Spirit, on the other hand, asks, what does God think of me? We thank God for the Uganda martyrs. They stood against the most powerful man in the kingdom because they regarded God's approval as supreme. God's approval mattered more than human approval, than the king's approval. Living in the flesh, we allow our anger, we allow revenge, we allow hatred to blaze on those who displease us. The flesh seeks retaliation. We witness every day many family feuds. Siblings, they hate each other. We experience political bitterness. There is refusal to forgive. People keeping grudges for years. Some people come to Holy Communion while carrying years of hatred in their hearts. The flesh says, I will never forgive that woman. I will never forgive that man. The Spirit, on the contrary, says, forgive as the Lord has forgiven you. The martyrs prayed for their persecutors. They died with forgiveness on their lips rather than bitterness in their hearts. Beautiful song we sing. Bafa bayimba, bafa batendereza. Lastly, living in the flesh is living a double life. And possibly this is the most dangerous. We hide behind religious appearances. We wear rosaries. For us, we wear cassocks with red ribbons. Everyone sees you from afar. Ah, Monsignor. We are in church, but dishonest in business. We lead prayers at home while maintaining immoral relationships. We speak about faith publicly while living contrary to it privately. We look Christian, but deep down us, we are not being Christian. The flesh loves appearances. The spirit loves authenticity. We thank God for the Uganda martyrs. Theirs was not a double life. What they professed publicly, they lived privately. Their beliefs and their actions were one. We can summarize this life in the flesh and life in the spirit, saying, living according to the flesh means allowing desires, money, popularity, anger, and hypocrisy to control our lives. Living according to the spirit means allowing Christ to control our lives. The flesh says, my will be done. The spirit says, thy will be done. The flesh seeks comfort. The spirit seeks holiness. The flesh leads to death. The spirit leads to life. The Uganda martyrs chose the spirit. That is why today you and I are here making a pilgrimage to this holy site of Martyrs. My brother and sister, my fellow pilgrim, you are not in the flesh. The Lord calls you to live in the Spirit. The Christian life is not merely avoiding sin. It is living under the influence of the Holy Spirit. The Lord is inviting you to submit to the law of the Spirit, so that the Spirit raised Jesus may be in you, and that on that day he may raise you also. The same Spirit who conquered the tomb must conquer your fears, must conquer your addictions, must conquer your selfishness, must conquer your corruption, must conquer your compromises. We are not debtors to the flesh. How tragic when Christians allow money, power, pleasure, or popularity to become their masters. The martyrs remind us that God alone is Lord. That to God alone we must pledge our obedience. The Gospel from St. John gives us the secret of the martyrs. We have heard it said that unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains but a grain. The grain that refuses to die remains alone. Some of what we have been treasuring today, as we make this pilgrimage to Munyonyo, we must command all those who've been holding a treasure, we must command them to depart from our life so that we may live and live again. So that our life may take on godly meaning. When we allow the weed in us to die, it is only then that we shall bear much fruit. The Uganda martyrs died, and look at the fruit. Millions of Christians. Hundreds of priests, religious men and women. Missionaries being shipped throughout to the world. What have we? A living church. My dear pilgrims, whoever loves his life loses it. The modern culture worships comfort. The martyrs worshipped Christ. Whoever serves must follow none other but to follow Christ. My brothers, my dear sisters, let us follow Christ as the martyrs did. Let us not be selective disciples who pick and choose, but who follow the entire gospel. The world honored Kabaka Mwanga, but today the world, Christianity, honors the martyrs of Uganda. God honors those who remain faithful. You may be asking, Monsignor, how can I be a truly alive Catholic today? If our theme is Christ is alive in you and me, then how does a Catholic show that Christ is truly alive? My dear fellow pilgrim, a Catholic is alive when prayer is not occasional, but daily. A Catholic is alive when Sunday Mass is not optional, but essential. A Catholic is alive when confession is embraced. A Catholic is alive when marriage is chosen and lived. A Catholic is alive when business is conducted honestly. A Catholic is alive when public life reflects Christian values. A Catholic is alive when purity is defended. A Catholic is alive when corruption is rejected, truth is spoken courageously, the poor are loved, forgiveness is practiced, and faith influences decisions. Christ is alive in us when our behavior reflects his presence. The Uganda Martyrs challenge us. Can Christ be seen in your family? Can Christ be seen in you, dad, mom, you the child in the family? Can Christ be seen in your business? Can Christ be seen in your internet life? Can Christ be seen when no one is watching? The greatest danger facing the church today is not persecution. We are not persecuted per se, directly, but it is lukewarmness. Obukatoliki obw'ekibuvuumirize oba obukatoliki obw'ekisuusuusu. Obukatoliki obutagugumira ddala, obutayokya, obukatoliki obutatulika. During their time, the martyrs faced a king. Today, in our time, we face compromise. The martyrs faced fire. We face comfort. The martyrs faced execution. We face indifference. The battle has changed, but the challenge still remains. As I conclude, my brothers and sisters, today the Uganda Martyrs stand before us not as museum pieces, but as living witnesses. Their legacy is not something to admire, it is something to continue. They remind us that holiness is possible, they remind us that courage is possible, they remind us that faithfulness is possible. Sanctity can grow on the African soil. they remind us that Christ can truly live in ordinary people. As we celebrate from this blessed hill of Munyonyo, where their final journey began, may their witness ignite us once again. Allow me to leave you with this final challenge. Do not merely celebrate the martyrs. Continue them. Live courageously as they lived. Do not merely remember their legacy. You yourself become that legacy. Do not merely preserve their fire. Burn. Burn as a Catholic. Burn with the martyr's fire. Kolera omuliro ng'abajulizi bwe baakolera. And when your earthly pilgrimage ends, may we all be said of us what is said of the Uganda martyrs. They lived the way they did because Christ lived in them. Balamazi bannange mwenna, Kristo omulamu abeere mu mmwe mwenna, mube balamu nnyo olwa Kristo omulamu abalimu. Kama bampeere nnyo omukisa.